All right. Hello, hello. Testing. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Is mine not? I get anything? Cool. That seems to be working. Everything else looks good. Computer looks good. You look good. Great. Welcome to another Friday night, afternoon, evening stream for song feedback. So I'm going to kind of do a little intro here for people who might be watching the video later on, just so you kind of know what's going on. But this is something I do every Friday for the last couple of weeks, and I will probably continue to for the indefinite future, where you can basically send me a track that you are working on or potentially have recently finished, and I will give you some honest feedback about it to the best of my ability, as well as share it with the community who can also listen to it and give feedback in chat. So I'm going to be tossing the link to the spreadsheet in the chat, and I'm going to pin it to the top. So if in future times you want to join us and share a track, we can take a listen to it. In addition, if you can't always make these streams and you are interested in getting feedback on a track, but you're like, Fridays are not good for you, you can join the Discord channel where you will have access to the link early on. The Discord link should be in the description below, and that way you can submit a track and then watch the video later on, because all of the videos from all of the live streams are uploaded and saved to the channel. So like I said, if you are not available, you can't make it here, you can't do this on time, there are options for you to still get feedback on your track, and you can even get kind of like early feedback, because I'll usually go through those tracks first before anything else. But yeah, other than that, welcome to the video. I'm really excited to hear what kinds of tracks you guys have been working on or are working on right now. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and dive right into it. And obviously, if you are digging this kind of content and you want to see more of it, please feel free to subscribe, like, comment, all that kind of stuff. It definitely helps me out do the thing that I'm doing here. So we're going to start off with the track. Let me give it another minute or two just to kind of figure out, make sure everything is working the way I want it to. Everything looks good. And that looks good. Cool. So we're going to start with the track from Jason, who has loaded up into the spreadsheet already. Let me go ahead and load this up. And pull this track up. Interesting, Jason. If you are out there, the first link that you sent me does not work. It says the track is not found. It might have been removed. So I don't know if you changed that. If you want to re-upload it or resend it, that would be very, very helpful for me. But that track is not working. But luckily, Jason sent me 2 tracks. So let's try the other one. That one doesn't work either. So we shall have to see if Jason can show up and get me links that actually work, because these are not. Let me try these one more time. Yep, those links are not working. Let's see if Jason shows up, and then we can take a listen to them. Perhaps they are not on the right privacy setting. They're set for maybe like only specific people can watch them or something like that. You might need to just set them to private and then make sure that anybody who has the link can listen to them. Sweet. So those were the tracks I had ready to go. So unfortunately for right now, I'm just going to be kind of hanging out and hoping that somebody will show up and send me some music. So until that time, I'm not quite sure what I'll do. I think I will probably just hang out and make some weird noises and see who shows up. And also just double check to make sure these links are the proper links and I'm not missing anything else in this situation. Checking. Nope. That is, yeah, still not working. Cool. Well, in that case, I am going to start playing around and maybe do a little sound design and just kind of screw around until people have tracks for me. What's up? Jason, there you are. Great. So, Jason, both of the links that you sent me did not work. They both kind of show up looking like this. It just says track was not found. It may have been removed. So I don't know if you changed the link or whatever, but that's not working. And we got somebody else in here who honestly I have no idea how to pronounce your name, but what's up? Welcome to the stream. If you have a track that you want to share, the link is pinned up at the top. As well as a phonetical pronunciation of your name would be super handy because I don't even know what that means. So Jason, if you are out there and you can update the links for your tracks, that would be super, super helpful. So up at the top, there's a link that should be pinned at the top of the chat to a Google spreadsheet. Just put the link in the spreadsheet underneath the other links, and I will take a listen to it. And you can also put your YouTube name in there, so I know whose track is whose. And let me know if the link is not working for whatever reason. It's not doing what you think it should be doing. No worries. I'm super stoked to see what you guys have been working on. And I'll go ahead and just do a little review of some of the kind of guidelines. They're not really rules, but things I just kind of generally prefer. Ideally, no remixes. It's really hard to give feedback on remixes because I'm not always sure what is original and what is part of a remix. On top of that, if you're doing a remix, I can also get like copyright strikes and things like that, and I don't want to have to deal with that. Also, I generally prefer works in progress, although that's not necessary. A lot of the times when I hear tracks that are like fully done, if I give you feedback on it, and then you're not going to go back and fix the track if it's already done. If it's already released and kind of in the public, generally you're not going to actually go back and take that information to fix your track or change up your track. Ideally no remixes, ideally works in progress, but those are both kind of flexible in terms of what you can do. Jason, unfortunately, because of YouTube being weird, you cannot post links in the chat. It doesn't let you do that. And I tried to fix that, and I couldn't figure out how to change that. And I'm going to try to only do one per person for right now. And then if I get through everybody's and there's people have multiple tracks in there, I will definitely get around to do multiple tracks per person. What's up, Monk? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. All right, I got some tracks in here. All right, so we got a very cryptic song title here. This is actually makes me very excited to hear what this sounds like. So we'll give a listen and let me know how the audio is coming from this as well compared to the volume of my voice. I want to make sure everything is sounding good. Yeah, Jason, you can probably put the link in Discord and I can probably grab from there if that works. Interesting. So I think there's a lot of stuff about this track that you're doing really well, and I think that are working really well. However, I do feel like there needs to be a little bit more of an evolution to what's happening here. So first off, I think the things you're really nailing are partially just like the overall branding of the entire thing, because you have like this crazy name here, the crazy title here, you have this kind of like glitchy pixelated image here, you've got a glitchy pixelated image here, and the sound itself also has this very kind of like mysterious, abstract, kind of futurist glitch, kind of sci-fi kind of thing, which I think is a cool, interesting like package to wrap it all up in. And I think that's actually working really well. And I think the kind of like surrounding aesthetic complements the sound, which is really crucial when it comes to building a brand. So to me, the two main issues are number one, it seems like the volume just kind of goes up, and then you were kind of like put in this sonic space, and then that sonic space just kind of extends with very minor, very subtle changes throughout the whole like 6 minutes plus of this track, which I think can work. And I think oftentimes in ambient music, it kind of has a reputation of like, that's just how ambient music works. But I think that to me, the most interesting ambient music, or things that have a kind of like ambient vibe, evolve and grow and change a lot over time. What's up, Zach? Welcome. So I think you could start with maybe like a filtered out version of this, and then it kind of like either new elements come in as the song evolves, or probably more importantly, some elements come out. Like you have this kind of like glitchy arpeggiated thing that kind of just goes the whole way through. What if at some point along this arrangement that fades out and either something new replaces it, or we're just left with the kind of like drony ambient sound for a little bit before the end? Like it kind of happens here at the end, which is really cool and pretty, but then the song just kind of ends. So I think, having changes or evolutions to your arrangement in terms of new elements coming in and some elements coming out, I think will do a lot to this arrangement. You had mentioned, I think in the chat, potentially adding some like drums on here. Is that something that you are like planning on doing, like expanding this and doing some kind of like drums? And if so, I'd be curious to hear like what kind of drums you're thinking about. Because to me, I could hear some kind of like glitchy, like IDM, Aphex Twin, weird percussive kind of stuff going on, if you wanted to go that route. And if you did, I think that would also change a lot about how the arrangement changes and evolves, because you can use that to create kind of like different emotional parts of this arrangement. So that's the main thing. And I think that if you're not into that, if you're not into doing a bunch of big arrangement changes, make it a little bit shorter. I think probably, I don't know, 4 minutes, and I think you get the kind of same thing across. To me, this sounds like a track that could fit like in between two other songs, like two other really big epic songs on like a concept album or something like that, where you have like a big epic song and you have this as kind of like a palette cleanser kind of thing, and then you go into the other like big kind of crazy epic song. Yeah, I think if you add some drums in here, add some percussive elements, that'll definitely help the arrangement feel a little bit more kind of varied and changing over time. The other thing that I have that I noticed in here was you have this, like I said, kind of glitchy arpeggiator thing that I think works really well and it sounds really cool. But especially during the second half, it does a lot of interesting note choices. It sounds like you're just playing different notes or chords in there. And some of them sound out of key a little bit, which creates this interesting dissonance. I'm not sure if that is intentional or not. If it is intentional, and you like that's what you're going for, you want it to feel kind of uncomfortable and a little weird and a little bit out of key, then go ahead and keep that there. I personally thought that sometimes it worked and sometimes it was a little bit too much, especially towards the end. There are a few moments where I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to hear those notes right now. Which again, that's an artistic choice that you might want to be making, and you might want to be like challenging your audience and playing with this concept of dissonance and notes that are in key versus notes that are out of key. If it were up to me, I probably would tone it down a tiny bit, and I think that would be totally fine. But yeah, it's a cool track. Like I said, I like the aesthetic. I like what you're doing with it. I like this kind of music a lot. This is definitely kind of music I like to make when I'm just kind of like chilling, hanging out, just making like weird, strange things that evolve. So I can see where you're going with it, but I think it needs a little bit more arranging and maybe a little bit more dialing in on the some of those like weird arpeggiated sounds, and more variety is kind of what I'm craving to hear here. But yeah, it's a cool track, and I appreciate you sharing that. Anybody in the chat as well, feel free to add in any questions, comments, feedback, ideas, any of that kind of stuff. And anybody else who also just joined us, there is the spreadsheet linked up at the top of the chat if you want to share a track to get feedback on it. Cool. So we're going to try jumping back to Jason's track because he put his in here first technically, and the link just didn't work. So we'll see if this link works now. Cool. All right. So this is from Jason. Yeah, I appreciate you popping by and sharing a track. Like I said, it's super cool. If we get through one of everybody else's track, I can go back in. I saw you put more than one track in there. So if we get through everybody's before the end of the stream, I will take a look at another one of your tracks, or we can just do this again next week. All right. So Jason, this is one of your tracks. It looks like in the comments he said, just not mixed yet. Just looking for some feedback. Yeah, I think another melody on there would also be really key on top of the arpeggiator part. That's good advice, Monk. I'm digging the bongo solo. All right, I'm gonna turn up the volume a little bit for you guys. Is that a little better? Thanks for letting me know. It was a little quiet. Nice. That's a cool track. I like what you got going on here. I feel like I can kind of see where you're going with it. I think there's a few avenues you can go down to like really flesh out this track a bit more. 2-3 main things really. Number one, I was kind of waiting to like really get hit with the kick drum, and I never really did. And the kick is there, and I could hear the kick, but I couldn't feel the kick. And I think in this kind of music, especially, like, you're nailing it on your like housey percussive parts, like the all the percussion and the bongos and like all that stuff is working really, really well and gives it this like really kind of groovy housey feel that I think is one of my favorite parts of house music. But the kick feels severely lacking, and that could partially just be a volume thing. I think if you just crank up the volume, especially in parts where you're like, I feel like you're doing a lot of kind of like giving the opportunity for the audience to just kind of jam out and dance to like the little bongo solo. Like, this is great for like people to like mess around on the dance floor. But like when that kick comes in, it needs that heaviness. It needs that like big bassy boomy feel, so that way people can like really get down to it. So more kick, and potentially also maybe layer it up with another kick sample, so it gets a little thicker and a little fuller, and that way it feels a bit bigger. Because I like what's going on with the bass line and the percussion and everything else. Just I need more kick in order for people to like. In order for me to imagine people like really getting down on the dance floor to this track, it needs much bigger kick, and that's kind of what I imagine people doing to this. The second thing that I noticed is this little bongo solo section here. I love. I think it's great. I think it's a fantastic thing to do. However, I think in the context of an arrangement like this, again, I'm thinking about like the context of like you playing this at like a music festival or a nightclub or something like that. Imagine this like outdoors at a festival somewhere. I think you need to warm up the audience a little bit more with the concept of this song before you lay in on a bongo solo that goes for almost a minute. So I think what you need to do is I like the intro, I like the A section. I think you need to have a short break first of maybe like a little mini bongo section. And then you go back into your main section here. And then once you've kind of like got the audience hooked, you've kind of like, the audience kind of knows what the deal is, then they'll have more patience for a longer bongo solo. So I think the bongo solo happens too early in the arrangement. And I also think the song should probably be closer to 4 or 5, maybe even 6 minutes. And then you put the bongo solo 60, 70, 80% of the way through. I'd say 70% of the way through the song. And that way people are kind of grooving out to it. They know what's going on. They know what the deal is. They're into it. And then you have a little bit more creative license to get creative with the length of your bongo solo and what you can do with it, and kind of keep your audience's attention. So great idea, but needs to go later in the song once you've kind of like already gotten the audience grooving. The last major thing I think this track needs is I think it needs a really strong melody. I think you have, like when I'm hearing this, I'm mostly hearing drums, bass, and that's basically it. And like, so some kind of melodic element, I think, will really kind of like be the icing on the cake in here. Put something in that kind of like higher frequency range, something that really kind of makes this track memorable, like some super catchy but super simple, like housey, classic housey melody, and then you're good to go. I think that'll really help kind of round out the arrangement, give you a lot more you can do with what you're doing here, and I think it'll make the whole thing sound much more complete than what it sounds like now. I think the percussion is great. I like what you're doing with the bass line, and I do think this part is really cool because it's so weird. I'm not sure I'm in love with the sound that's happening in the background. There's some like chords going on in the background. And I appreciate that there's something there, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the right thing. But other than that, I thought this was a sick track. Like I said, love the housey feel to it, super groovy. Needs to go a little harder on the kick, a little more melody, and then flesh out the arrangement. Give me a full 4, 5, 6 minute house arrangement here. Put the bongo solo about 70% of the way through. But yeah, that is a super cool track. Thanks for sharing that. Also appreciate all of the feedback people are putting in the chat. That's really a big part of this for me, is I want you not to just hear feedback from me, but also just have there be a conversation or a dialogue between everybody involved. Awesome, cool. Yeah, I think in terms of like it doesn't necessarily need to be a 6-minute arrangement, Jason. I think that like listen to some other house music tracks that have a kind of similar vibe to it and kind of see, how far they can push it. To me, arrangement is not like a fixed thing. It doesn't need to be a certain length, but I do think that if you're going to have a 1-minute bongo solo, you need to warm people up for it. You can't just have it be the first or the second minute of your song, because people will get confused. But I think conceptually, more bongo solos, more weird percussion is a great idea. Cool. And now we got a track from Monk. This is his first. It's his first mix and master. Nice. And he composed this on Twitch. Nice. Sweet. You'll have to send me a link to your Twitch through Discord or something. Roberto, the link is pinned to the top of the chat for submitting a chat or a song. Nice. That is a super cool track. Really well done here. Before I get into the feedback, Jason was asking in the chat, where's everybody get their artwork from? Which is a question I would also love to know about, because I usually get mine from friends or photographers or people I know who are graphic designers. But I'm curious where everybody else is doing theirs from. Also, if you want to let me know where you're from, I'm always really curious to hear about chat and where you are watching from tonight. So a couple things about this track. Number one, I really dig the vibe of it. I think from a sound design perspective, it is everything sounding really good. I think it sounds really like high quality. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Glitch Mob, like in the like just slightly post Drink the Sea era, which is fantastic. I think Glitch Mob is amazing. I think that arrangement made a lot of sense. I thought I couldn't figure out what I thought was interesting about the drums. The drums, like, something was kind of throwing me off, and then I realized it's kind of like a dance hall rhythm, the kind of like kick snare pattern, especially over here. Like boom, boom, which I thought was a really interesting rhythmic choice that I probably wouldn't have made personally, but I think it's cool because it makes this song really kind of like stand out to me. But as far as things I was noticing that could use a little bit of love, a few things in the mix that I want to touch on in just a moment. But the main thing was the drum, especially the snare, and I think there's a few different kinds of snare clappy sounds that you use. The first one over here, there's something about the tail of your snare that is sticking out to me a little bit. It makes it a little bit too noticeable. I think it's like a hair too loud. But I think that maybe if you have a little bit of reverb on your snare, turn the decay time down by like a tiny bit, like a fraction of a second. It just sounds a little distracting to me. I think when it comes to snare drums, if you have a little too much tail, that really kind of defines the sound, and it sticks out to me. So snare is a little loud, and then tone down the reverb just a hair, and then you have this other kind of weird snare over here that I thought was too quiet. So there's like, it changes a little bit depending on where you're at. Yeah, that snare's too quiet. And it goes back to the same snare over here. I guess there's only two. Oh, there's three. Yeah, and then there's a clap there. So there's like, you're jumping around between a few different snare clap sounds, and those are the ones that felt like they needed the most love to me in terms of like processing and compression and kind of making sure they're all kind of like roughly the same volume and similar kind of processing on them. Because right now, like, some of them stuck out to me. I was like, oh, that, like, I wasn't expecting that sound, or that sounded too quiet, or it sounded too loud. Yeah, it definitely does have like a bit of an 80s vibe to it, but it also like has a very kind of like modern feel, which I think is a really popular thing right now, where you take like a little bit of nostalgic 80s sound design and a little bit of like modern production, and you kind of combine the two. And then what were the other things that I noticed? Yeah, I love all these sounds. The piano sounds great. Whatever you did for the piano is working. Your hats also stuck out of the mix a little bit as being a little bit too loud. That's something I found out a lot, actually, when I mix my own stuff and then I master my own stuff. When I finish my mix, my hi-hats, my percussion sounds like perfectly right when I'm mixing. And then when I go to mastering, because there's nothing else that lives up in that frequency range, up in that kind of like super high frequency range, when I master it, they just stick out. And so I've found that just in general, when I'm mixing my own stuff, I'll keep my hats and my percussion, or my hats and my things that are up in that kind of frequency range, specifically quieter than I think they need to be. And then that way, once I'm mastering, they actually turn out where I want them to be. I feel like your kind of choppy, gated, kind of low frequency sound here could be a little bit louder. I think it's a super cool sound, but I think it could be louder. I think the strings could be a hair quieter, because I think the piano parts are really kind of the important part here. It's not a piano part anymore. It's like a arpeggiated synth part. That could be a little bit louder, and then strings could be a hair quieter. Yeah, you can really hear it right here. If you listen to the difference in volume between the clap that's right here versus the snare that's right here, it's like very apparent that they're different. Yeah, those are the main things I'm noticing. Like I said, I don't really have a lot of feedback on the production. I think you nailed a lot of the production stuff. Mix stuff, it's just like a few minor things here and there, just like turning things up like a decibel or two or down a decibel or two here and there, outside of the snare clap situation, just to make sure everything is exactly where you want it to be in the mix. But I think overall, if this is the first time you're mixing your own track, it's very well on its way to being done. It's just like those little tiny minor things that just take like lots and lots of listens too. But yeah, a super cool track. I'm really digging it. Anything else that I thought it needed? Not really. Yeah, just making sure you're dialing in those volumes and making sure things are right. I think as far as the master goes, I think you could push it a little harder through the master if you wanted to. Right now, it seems to like have a pretty decent dynamic range. And if you're going for that more kind of like 80s sound, I wouldn't push it too much harder on the master. But you think you'll find with most kind of modern electronic music, you can go a little bit harder, pushing the volume on the master through the limiter. And I think you should be totally fine. I think it'd be a fairly normal thing for you to do. But yeah, that is a super cool track. Yeah, I'm curious, is this kind of normally the style you're doing? This kind of like 80s retro synthy kind of thing? All right, sweet. So we got a bunch of new links in the chat, which is awesome. All right, so we got Jabba FX. It's a cool name. Since this is a 7-minute track, I might not be able to listen to the whole thing. I try to listen to almost all of the tracks that people are sharing, but that's a pretty long arrangement. All right, I'll probably fade it out during this section over here, if you don't mind. Nice, Monk. Yeah, don't put yourself in a box if you don't need to. Just make what you feel like. And labels are overrated. I really like this part. I like what you got going on, Java. we got kind of like an ambient psychedelic outro. I'm gonna go back here, just listen to the beginning a little more. All right, we got a lot of stuff going on here. Most of it is really, really cool. I think that, to me, it sounds kind of like 3 different tracks right now. It sounds like you're doing a lot of experimental stuff with different kinds of like interesting, weird psychedelic sound design. I agree with people in the chat. I think the imagery fits a lot of this kind of like very kind of like dark, surrealist kind of sound design, which I think is really cool. I think it's a great direction to go with the genre of drum and bass, which tends to have very kind of like signature qualities to it. Like it has like a kind of a roadmap for how you make drum and bass. And I think you're doing some really cool experimental stuff here. I think the biggest thing that this track needs is it's got the drum part of the drum and bass, but it doesn't really have the bass part. And I think there's a lot of different directions you could go with the bass line. I think you could go with like a weird, like neuro, like aggressive kind of bass line. Or you could go with a more kind of like classic, just like big, kind of like boomy, percussive drum and bass line. That's the missing link here. I think if you get a bass line that works with this kind of vibe and you can make it fit in, I think it's kind of like the rug in the Big Lebowski, where it's gonna tie the whole thing together and make this whole track work. So that's what I feel like is missing. I feel like it's gonna a big bass line. It's gonna add a lot of energy to this track. It's gonna add a lot of cohesiveness to it. It's gonna make it feel like kind of the 3 major sections: the first section, the middle section, and the last section all kind of flow together. And I think that's the biggest thing you can do for this. Other than that, I think that between your 3 sections, there are certain elements that are kind of cohesive, and there's certain elements that you hear a little bit, and then they just go away forever. So for example, in this section here, you got all of this like these weird chimes and a bunch of these like weird reverse kind of sounds going on. And over here, we don't get any of those. So I think that taking elements from one part of your song and recycling it in another part of the song and then layering it with other psychedelic elements is also going to help with the cohesiveness and make it all work together. Because I think the psychedelic weird sound design is working for me and working for this track, but it feels like this section doesn't have anything to do with this section. And I want them to at least feel like they belong together a little bit. Like I said, the bass line can do that, but also recycling some of the sounds you already have. I did really, really love this middle section. I think the drums here and the sound design here, I think are yeah. I think that the arrangement is fine. I just think that more things are happening during this arrangement, then you don't need to cut it out. But if you want to cut it, it's up to you. So I love this middle section right here. I honestly think you could start with this section. This could be the intro. You slap this at the beginning, and then that's a cool way to kind of lead in the song if you want to go that route with it. However, there's some strings that come in right over here. And the strings to me kind of stuck out like they just didn't really fit. Partially just because of the notes they're playing, also just because of like the style of the playing of those strings. And so if it were up to me, I would probably cut those strings and either, like I said, recycle something that's already in the track and put it in there, or replace it with something a little bit different. I didn't think they were doing a whole lot for the arrangement. They work better once the drums come in, but I'm not feeling it quite as much as I am a lot of the other songs yet, or sounds you have going on. But yeah, those are the big things. Get the bass line in there. Maybe use this middle section as your intro, and then recycle some of your elements so that they feel like your first drum section and your second drum section feel a little bit more cohesive together. But yeah, I like that it's weird and experimental. I like that you're playing around with it. But I think there's a few things in here that you could really dial in, and then I think you're going to be good to go. Yeah, I think sorting into 5 minutes could be totally legit way of going about it. What's up? How do you say that? Kirill? Surreal? Surreale? Oh my god, why am I so bad at reading YouTube names? But yeah, that's a dope track. Before we get into the next one, Jason was asking them, what do you put on your master? How do you bounce your tracks out? Are these tracks mixed and mastered? I'm not sure what percentages are mixed and mastered, unless they tell me in the comments. For me personally, I've got like a mastering chain. I just mostly use Ozone plus a couple plugins, maybe here and there, maybe some fat filter stuff. A lot of time, I think these, actually, I get a pretty good mix here. It sounds like some of these tracks are mixed or in some stage of mixing / mastering. And then I get some tracks that are just like no mixing or mastering. I don't, ultimately, when it comes to getting feedback, I'm not focusing super heavy on the mix unless people ask me about it. You don't even need to go to the Discord, although shout out to the Discord if you want to hop in there. If you want to submit a track, at the top of the chat, there should be a Google spreadsheet that is pinned, and you just follow that and toss your link in the spreadsheet. All right, we've got a track from Roberto. Also, I say this every feedback stream, but if you are in the chat and you're listening to these tracks and you're kind of waiting for your time to for me to get to your track, it is highly encouraged for you to put your own thoughts, your own feedback in the chat. I think it's really helpful that if somebody can be sharing something, that they don't just get feedback from me, they get feedback from all you guys, because it's cool to hear different people's opinions, and you know, different people might have different ideas than what I might have. All right, check out this track. Last time I heard one of these tracks from these guys, it was really sick. So I'm excited to hear what else you guys got. Super dope. I love this track. This is one of the best hip hop beats I've heard in quite a while. So basically, I'm gonna preface this by saying that any feedback I have on this is gonna be like very, very nitpicky, super minor things that you don't need to stress about too much. But you know, I can tell by the tracks you've shared that this is you do this quite a bit, and you are very good at producing tracks. So couple things. First off, it starts kind of way in your face, which might be like an intentional choice that you made. Like when you hit play, All right, should be working again. All right, should be working. All right, my computer does that sometimes where I just have to reset the thing real quick. I apologize about that. So yeah, so I was saying, like I said, any feedback I have on this track is going to be super nitpicky kind of stuff. But it does start very loud with just this intro, especially with the bass line. So I think you could kind of fade in, start with the melody part, and then let the bass kind of fade in as the rest of it kind of goes on. That way, like when you hit play, you're not just like blasted with sound. But that's debatable. It's a stylistic choice if you want. I do think your kick sample selection could be a tiny bit better. I like the kick, but it has like a all right, still working. Check 1, 2. All right, still working. Okay, it is. Sorry, again, my computer sometimes acts up when I'm streaming, and I'm working on trying to fix it. The bass line here. It's this very kind of blast of a bass line where it's like full volume and then nothing. And I think adding a little bit of decay to it, so it starts loud and then kind of just fades out, starts loud and then fades out, will sound a little better. It'll make it sound a little smoother, a little bit more percussive, which I think will really help this. Right now, it's just kind of like on off, this very kind of binary bass line, and I want it to be this kind of like fading away bass line. But again, super subtle kind of thing. This part's all dope. Love the glitchy sounds. All of your drum fills are crushing it. The kind of only other semi-major thing that I'm noticing is your vocal samples. There's like a vocal sample here, there's a vocal sample here, and there might be 1 or 2 others later on. They're a little quiet in the mix, so I think you could turn them up a little bit. I also think you could do a little bit more with them. I think you could sprinkle them a little bit more around the arrangement, as well as process them a little bit more. Like do some cool, interesting, weird effects with them, where you like occasionally have one where it like has a delay where it kind of echoes out, or it has like really heavy reverb, so it kind of like has a reverb tail coming out. Oh, am I muted again? All right, this is driving me nuts. Yeah, I'm getting mixed reviews on the from chat on whether my mic is working or not. It's always the Friday stream that does this. The Tuesday stream is is pretty consistent in terms of working. It's always halfway through the Friday stream it starts going crazy on me. But Roberto, I think you're caught up now. Hopefully, big thing was fade in on the bass in the intro. The first couple kick drums sound a little weird to me, but I think it's fine once the bass comes in. And then a little bit of decay on the bass instead of being this on off, and then more love on the vocal samples. I think they're really cool and I think they work really well. I think they should be a little bit louder and a little bit more processing. Love this part. This part's dope. And then the switch to the reggaeton part is just brilliance. Love it. Absolutely crushes it. I'm super, super thrilled that that happens there. But same thing here. Like you get that little vocal cry right there. If that was a little bit louder and a little more present in the mix, I think I would appreciate it a little more. But yeah, like I said, this is a super polished track, and I don't have a lot of critical feedback for it. All these things are very tiny, and I'm digging this track quite a bit. Anybody else in chat got any thoughts, ideas, questions, comments? Yeah, and Monk, yeah, sometimes like you just need to put a little bit more love into things, and that's all you really need. I feel like part of giving feedback and part of just like the process of giving somebody feedback is making sure that they still have the creative license to do what they want with it. And like, I'm not going to tell you what to do with it. It's like, it's your track. You're the artist. You get to make the decisions about, what you change or what you add or what you don't add. I also like to kind of preface a lot of my feedback with like, I'm just one person with one set of opinions, and don't take everything I say as like written in stone. Like if you have an artistic vision and you disagree with any of the feedback that I say, that's totally legit. But yeah, super polished track, very minor things on some of the kicks and some of the bass, and emphasizing a few other things. I thought the arrangement was great. Reggaeton section was great. The rhythm is great. The melody is great. You're crushing it on pretty much all fronts. So I'm digging it. All right, appreciate you sharing that. Let me close some of these windows down. And we got a track from Henry. All right. Yeah, Roberto, I don't know if you're caught up on the stream or where you're at right now, but excellent job. This was apparently started tonight by Henry. Nice. Not sure if you meant to bounce it out that early, or if it that was intentional or not, or you just did. That's as far as you've gotten for tonight. Yeah, this is like, it has this cool kind of like two-steppy kind of like vibe going on, which I really dig. Very kind of like UK thing going. I think the vocal works especially well. I don't know where you grabbed that vocal sample from. I think it could be compressed a little bit more and kind of like made a little bit more kind of present, and kind of beef it up and maybe layer it with like some other vocal parts. Like you can do a lot of like pitching up and pitching down of this. And do kind of like the pitch down to make it sound kind of like low and weird and distorted, or pitch it up to do these kind of like high pitched things, and like chop it up and then kind of layer it in there. And I think that'd be a really cool direction to go, with like using processed versions of the vocals as like the melodic elements here. I felt like the bass line, number one, was a little bit loud, and number two, felt a little basic for this style of music. It has this very kind of like housey, like classic kind of housey pluck kind of thing, which I think is sound design wise is good. But I think taking that bass line and really diving into like playing lots of different notes and getting more complex with it. Complexity, I think, is the right word for it. I want more complexity on the bass line, and I think that'll be really, really helpful. I love this little silence you put in here. This little like piece of negative space really caught my attention. It really felt like it broke up the whole thing, and the timing of it felt like surprising, but in a good way. I think that's one thing that if you can pull off when you're writing a song, if you can surprise somebody in a way that they enjoy it, then that's great. Sometimes when you surprise somebody, it's not enjoyable, but if you can be like, kind of throw somebody off a little bit and like force them to pay attention, it's really crucial. So I love that you did that there. I think you did it one more time. That one is also kind of weird too. So I think both of those are working for me. And other than that, the kick is really just kind of lost in the mix here. It's not really doing it for me. But if you just started this tonight, I wouldn't stress too much about it. But yeah, I think you're well on your way to doing that kind of like UK garage kind of thing. Maybe you're probably going to need some other kind of melodic element in there to help kind of back up the vocals. But other than that, I think it's love the reverse sounds. I know you've done a lot of kind of like glitchy stuff in the past, so I feel like there's a lot of room here to add in some of that kind of like glitchy elements, like some of the tracks you've shared earlier. But yeah, cool track. I can see where it's going. I can see the kind of direction you're headed with it, and it makes me want to hear more of it, which is what you want out of the first 40 seconds of a song. I think it'd be really cool if you did end up like having like a big heavier part to this. Like this is kind of like the chill intro, and then you had like a much bigger sounding like dropper or something like that later on, or at least the glitchy kind of drop thing. Cool, but thanks for sharing that. All right, so Cereal. I'm gonna fuck up your name every single time, probably. Yeah, Henry, thanks for sharing that track. Really appreciate it, and I think you've been one of the more consistent people who's been sharing tracks. So it's cool to see all the stuff you're working on. All right, let's take a listen to this track.
You're the melody in my head that I cannot forget. You're the only air I can breathe, and I'm standing on the edge. Oh, I believe in you and me. Hey, I believe in you and me.
Nice. I think what you have going on here already is pretty dope. The main things I'm noticing here is number one, it feels a bit over compressed. So I don't know if you've mastered this yet, or if it's being run through a limiter, or what's going on with it. But it does feel like you pushed it real hard on the master, and it's very noticeable. So I think and I know for this style of music, you're supposed to push it hard on the master, but I think you could tone it back a tiny bit, and you would still be totally fine for this style of music. Other than that, I'm gonna have like I'm gonna have a hot take on this. I think the vocal sample is cool, but I'm gonna take a wild guess in here, and I'm gonna guess that this is a vocal sample from like Splice or like a vocal sample library, right? You didn't record this yourself. It's not like your homie singing on this, correct? Because to me, it sounds like a vocal sample library sample. And a lot of EDM, a lot of this style of music is built around these kind of sounds and these kind of samples. However, when I hear that, to me, it just sounds like, okay, this is a generic vocal sample that you grabbed, that you just tossed in here, and it sounds great. It sounds super professional. It sounds super legit. And I think that 99% of the people who listen to this track are going to have no issue with it. However, when I hear a sample like that, it's almost distracting because to me, I'm like, okay, this sounds like you just downloaded a vocal sample, tossed it in there, processed a little bit, and then called it a day, which is fine. That's what a lot of people are doing for vocal samples like this. However, I think that if you're going to be making music like this and you want it to be really good, you want to really bring it to that next level, your bass stuff, and again, I'm not sure if those are samples or you did a sound design, whatever you did, it sounds great. This whole drop, besides being overcompressed, sounds dope. But that vocal sample to me stands out as like, this is not really you as an artist. This is not really you as a producer putting your own authentic artistic voice on this track. So this may be reasonable for you or maybe not, but I think that if you were to take out those vocal samples and record some yourself, whether it's you singing or your homie singing, or you just find somebody to collaborate with and get them to sing on it and get some lyrics that have some meaning to you or them, or have a little bit more like connection to your creative process, I think this will take this track from just sounding dope to being an amazing piece of heavy bass music. Henry, thanks for popping by. I'll see you next time. Yeah, so if you got to sing it for another track, I think that kind of thing, that kind of a little bit of like personal touch and authenticity can make all the difference in the world. Because it seems like your production skills they sound great. Everything sounds like all your synth stuff sounds great. Mix sounds pretty solid. Yeah, so yeah, and in some situations you're like, I don't have any singers, I don't know anybody who I can like trust to do a good job on this. That's fine. Keep an eye out for them. I think that's definitely a direction you could go for a future track potentially. Getting that little bit of like personal touch on there, I think will go a long way. You can also find people online. There are plenty of people you can write lyrics, send it to them, and they will sing on it, and you just take that and then use it. All right, I'm gonna turn the volume down on a little bit more and listen one more time and see if I notice anything else. But the vocal sample thing, I think, is, like I said, most people will not care about it. Yeah, Fiverr's hit or miss. Who knows what you're gonna get off Fiverr, but you can get stuff done on Fiverr. But the rest of the production to me sounded really solid. This part especially is the part that sounds the most overcompressed. The actual drop itself sounds normal for a drop in this genre, but this part to me is like, you can hear that. I would also say you have some kind of like background sounds here. You have some kind of like atmospheric things going on in the background that are a bit too loud. You could turn those down. I think that if you are going to keep the vocals here, which I think is a totally legit option, you need to make sure when the vocals are happening, those are the main focus. That's the center of attention. And right now the vocals are competing with a lot of other very loud sounds, which makes them get lost a little bit. So you can tone down in terms of volume some of those background sounds, and that'll keep the vocals a little bit more present in terms of where they sit in the mix. Yeah, and the drop sounds dope. I don't really have any issues with the drop. I think the song sounds honestly better than most of the drops I hear in a lot of bass music right now. So spot on with that. Although I'm going to make one other kind of hot take, and this is very much more of like a personal opinion than anything else. Rhythmically, this is pretty common, what you're hearing in a lot of like dubstep and bass music, with this very kind of like, I guess, like, for lack of a better word, rhythm. I don't like the word rhythm to describe it, but I think that's kind of like when all your kicks on the ones and your kicks with the snares. Tossing in occasional extra little kick drum fill here is like a little like broken beat kick, I think can be a great way to help kind of break up the rhythm a little bit. Never mind, you did it right there, so you're good. Yeah, those are the main things I'm noticing. I'll be super curious to see what you end up doing with, if you're going to do another drop for this, and how that kind of is different in the first drop and what direction to go with it. But honestly, the bass sound design you're crushing on. It's just a few of the other things kind of before leading up to the bass that needs a little bit of love. But that is a super cool track. Sweet. So as of right now, and unless there's anybody in chat who has not submitted a song or I'm missing something on the spreadsheet, I think I've gotten through at least one track from everybody. Does that sound right? How long have you been producing, by the way? It feels like you've put a lot of love into this, and you can tell that like you've been doing this for a while, I'm assuming. So yeah, so I'm gonna make this the last call before I think I call it for the evening. I know that I said if people submitted multiple tracks, I'd get through them tonight. But we've had a bunch of other people submit stuff, so I want to make sure that we get through everybody and everybody gets at least one track done. So I'm gonna wait a little bit, see what's going on, and if we have a little bit more time, then I maybe get through a second track for a couple people. But I'm probably gonna stop the stream in a little bit. Nice. 2 years for getting sounds like that. It feels pretty solid. Are you in France? Is that where you're located? This has like a very kind of like, I'm trying to think of who this reminds me of the most. I think you could go a very kind of like Apache kind of direction with this and go very kind of like classical music influenced as well, if that's something you're into. Yeah, Roberto, keep sending more tracks. Your stuff has been awesome. Appreciate you stopping by for the stream, and I'll see you around next time. Hopefully that was useful feedback for you. Yeah, Monk, thanks for stopping by. If you're not in, also anybody who's not in the Discord, feel free to join the Discord. It's still just kind of getting started. I'm still learning my way around Discord. So if you want to pop in there and just be part of the community, then I would very much appreciate it. But yeah, I'm very impressed with all the tracks I've heard today. We had a lot of variety, a lot of interesting, weird tracks, a lot of things kind of off the beaten path, which makes me very happy. I think it's cool when you guys are getting creative and doing interesting things with different styles of music, different genres, and weird psychedelic sound design or whatever take you guys have had on it. But yeah, I appreciate everybody who has shared a track. They've been dope. It's super inspiring for me too. Just being able to like listen to all your guys' tracks and then get ideas for how I want to start making my own music and doing my own things. Not start making music, but continue making my music. Awesome, yeah. And if you enjoyed the feedback and you want to support the channel, you want to help me out, any help, like just commenting on videos, liking on videos, sharing videos with your friends, sharing videos on Facebook, whatever, that kind of stuff is super useful. I am terrible at promotion, and so anybody who wants to help me out, sharing the content with your friends who produce, whatever, would mean a lot to me, because this is something I do for love, because I enjoy listening to music and talking about music and community, and I think it's cool when the community grows and we can do more things together and help each other out. Cool. So I think I'm going to call the stream there. I think that's pretty good. We got through a lot of tracks, a lot of good feedback. Chat, you guys have been dope. And I hope everybody has a very good weekend. Work on some new music. And I will be back on Tuesday for just a general random music production stream. If you guys have not checked that out, Tuesdays are when I do that. And then Fridays, I'll be here for song feedback streams. And you're always welcome to share tracks in the Discord as well if you want to get feedback and you're not here on a Friday. Cool, awesome. All right, everybody, I will see you later.